Hey guys, welcome back to this week's poll, or Josh would like to say,
What are we reading?
with a lot less enthusiasm than before. What we're doing today is because it's such a heavy week for comic books, we're actually going to be making single podcasts for certain big issues, kind of gauging our audiences and what they might be looking for. So this one is devoted, as you can tell from the thumbnail and the title of this, Doomsday Clock issue number 6. And as you guys know, Doomsday Clock comes out every 2 months, so it's kind of hard to remember exactly what happened in the preceding issue every time the new one comes out. But this time we've got ourselves one that's focused very heavily on the new Marionette and Mime, and we're getting a little bit of backstory from them, as well as kind of progressing the story forward and as to what's happening here. But Josh, I'm going to let you kind of go away. What are some of your thoughts, your initial thoughts? Because we all just got done reading this issue.
I don't know. I feel like with it being about 6 issues in, that the story should be progressing to where you can kind of have an idea of at least what's going on or where the story is heading. And I feel like we haven't really. I still can't tell you where the story is going or where it's heading
Or what it's about.
And I think that part of it could be just the fact that these books are separated 2 months apart. So it makes it really kind of hard to remember what happened in the last issue. So I think the way that this book is coming out and the way this book is lined up for this event, I don't think it's very well planned.
It's not effective. What about you, Dallas?
I just have such a taste of blah in my mouth. Like, I was excited for the Watchmen to be in the DC universe, and we've done podcasts reviewing the other 5 issues, and none of us have been overly impressed with any of them. There have been better ones, there have been worse ones, but none of them overall have been good. This one falls into the same exact category. It's not the worst, it's not the best. We get backstory on new characters. That's needed, but like you said, 6 issues in, I feel like I should have got that issue 1 or 2, and I already should have story lined out. All we're getting, like you said, a little progression with them and Joker. I have no idea how that fits into the grand scheme. What is the grand scheme? Like, I don't understand anything about it. And the only thing I can really say on a positive note is at least these characters are somewhat interesting to me, and there's some action in it.
Yeah.
That's about it. The artwork's fine. I have no complaints on artwork.
That's what I was saying. That's one of the pluses for me is Gary Frank's art. I think he does a great job here. But yeah, I can't get my finger on the pulse of this book. I don't know exactly what story Geoff Johns is trying to tell. Some issues feel very much like it's supposed to be a complete retread of the Watchmen tropes, and then other times like this issue, it's just its own thing. It's telling its own story, but there doesn't seem to be a cohesive story going, like a narrative that's being woven from issue 1 to now issue 6. I mean, this is the halfway mark in Doomsday Clock. I should know what the story is, and yeah, again, because of the 2 months apart, it's it's an ineffective business strategy because we're living in a world now where you can stream everything you want right away. Like, comics have kind of failed to keep up with the way that we are all getting our media anymore, which is pretty much instantaneous. And now we're waiting 2 months in between single issues here, and I can't really remember what happens in the last issue, so it's like every time I jump into Doomsday Clock, it's just a new issue that kind of tells its own thing. And I can't really understand where everything is going and where it's come from. I remember there was like a very heavily involved Rorschach issue where we got a lot of history on him. Now it's Marionette and the Mime character, and we're getting stuff with them. And now there's like Joker and all these villains who are like, we got to go to Kahndaq. We have to do something. They're all rallying in like a subway. Batman's passed out in a wheelchair, and something that bugs the hell out of me when you got Batman, at your mercy and you're not unmasking him and trying to figure out who he is, why are you wasting time? I don't think Geoff Johns also has a great grasp on writing Joker's dialogue. No. I love Geoff Johns, but I don't think he's very good at writing Joker. What about you, Josh?
I mean, I kind of agree. There's a couple of lines that Joker actually says is lines that you've heard on the like it's like he heard it on the television, like the cartoon, or he heard it in the movie. I mean, he even legitimately says, let's put a smile on that face in one panel.
Yeah.
So you almost feel like he's like, what would Joker say here? And he just thinks of what he's heard Joker say, and he just puts it in there.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm not sold on the Joker. There are moments where I'm like, okay, that writing was decent when he's over the top and joking, but then there are other moments he just seems like a completely sane, regular character just there. And he's not essential to anything. Like, whenever I see Joker, he's always essential to the story. He's never just one of those characters passing on the street. He always has an impact. And when someone writes him so casual, like some regular dude, he loses impact to being Joker. He's just a regular dude.
Yeah.
And that's how it comes across.
Yeah, and there's just weird, like Mr. Freeze has goons. Every major villain has like a goon squad. And so like Mr. Freeze's goons come out of nowhere, and Joker's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna follow you guys." And then there's all these villains beating up. You get Cheetah and Dr. Sivana and Mirror Master, Heatwave, like all these guys. And what did they call it? The Superman.
Superman theory.
The Superman
they called
theory.
The answer to.
Yeah,
they gave some goofy names.
Yeah, they're
to it.
like the Legion of
the
Super
League
Villainy.
of Villainy. Yeah. And again, it just came out of nowhere. The Superman theory is something I think they've addressed in previous issues before.
Addressed it in the
they're
last
talking
issue.
about basically like the government is making superheroes.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea. And then out of nowhere, here comes the comedian, just and he's just capping all these guys. It's just a clusterfuck of things happening, but no story being told, no progression of story being told. And so, I don't know. I want to like this series. I really do. It's like you got Jeff Johns, who I think is grade A. You got Gary Frank, who is just at the top of his class here in his art, and nothing in here is happening other than a few times where I'm like, the action was cool, or I didn't expect that. There's nothing in this story overall that's doing anything for me. And I can't imagine that they can keep up with this every 2 months thing, because I know people are like, oh, when's the next Doomsday Clock? Oh, when's the next Doomsday Clock? But after the new Doomsday Clock issue comes out, no one was like, did you read that last issue of Doomsday Clock? It's just like, okay, fool me once, fool me twice, now you're going to be fooling me a sixth time. Like, we're in unmarked territory here, uncharted waters.
Everybody just keeps reading it because they're hoping, because it was such a big, huge thing in the DC Rebirth issue, like that one shot.
Right.
So everybody's just hoping at some point there's going to be an answer, and that's the only reason why they're reading it. And I'm afraid it's going to be kind of like the last few DC events where it ends and it's just like it's
a lead up to another event,
or it's just an uneventful event. It's not even an event. It just ends up ending.
Well, here's the thing. So at the beginning of Rebirth, there's like this promise of the three Jokers. There's the Watchman button, right, that we all assume it has something to do with Dr. Manhattan. We've got little clues like Wally West not being remembered. Nobody remembers him until he can like jog their memory. And then they did the actual like Batman Flash crossover for issue thing, where it was just like a placeholder, like, oh, we know we've promised you this thing. Here's a little. We'll spit this out. And hopefully,
here's like one kind of answer.
Not even that.
20,000 more questions.
It's like whatever they would bring you before an appetizer at a meal, which I don't know what the hell you'd even call it.
I don't even think it was that. I feel like it was just like kind of like a reminder. It's like, hey, you remember that we announced
remember
this?
That thing? You
Yeah.
remember
that thing that we announced?
Back in like August or July of 2016.
It's been almost 2 years since they teased this. And I mean, like, everybody wants to trash on Marvel because Marvel Legacy, their one shot that kind of announced everything that's going to be happening within Marvel Comics for a while. It's like a whole year's difference of time before they start addressing some of the stuff that they point out in that book. And DC Rebirth it was the same thing. But now it's been almost 2 years, and they're just now starting to address the stuff, and they're not even doing it. Like in Doomsday Clock, you're still not getting any kind of answers or any kind of lead up for it. And then also like the whole Three Jokers thing.
Yeah.
They just announced that they're going to be finally doing a book that kind of addresses that. But
isn't
it's
that
not
the
even
Black
out.
Label?
Yeah, it's the DC Black Label imprint, and then also it doesn't come out until like September. So even they just announced it at the Comic-Con. So it's just like they're not really addressing, like they teased all this stuff 2 years ago. I guess maybe that's what DC's thing is just making you wait, because they make you wait two months for this book to come out. And
the way I look at this one, the idea of it sounded exciting to most comic fans that were fans of Watchmen and DC. But if you remove DC characters and completely add new original characters to the storyline, I would not be reading this at all. The only reason I'm reading this is strictly because it's DC, and it has some of my favorite characters. That's the only reason. The story's not entertaining. I mean, the art's good, but the action, there's hardly any. It's setup after setup after setup with no answer, and there's no reward 6 issues in. So,
right, and there's like no linear story being told. There's always a flashback in every single issue.
Yep.
There's like here's what happened in the past, but it doesn't relate metaphorically in any way to what's happening in the present. Other than stuff that's very on the nose,
right.
But we're still getting questions. Where's my baby? From Marionette and Mime. It's like we've been wondering. They've been asking the same question since issue 1. When the fuck are we gonna actually start getting some answers? We're halfway through the series now. So Dallas, I'm curious because Josh and I work here. As a patron, how do you feel about Doomsday Clock?
If I wasn't the person I am, when I start a series, I usually try to, especially if it's limited. If it's a longer series, it's a different story. But limited series, if I start them, I try to finish them. And honestly, even though it conflicts me to not collect it, I honestly would have a hard time justifying buying this if I wasn't reviewing it or I had access to a comic store locally.
Here's my question to you. Your hype levels when this was announced that they were doing Doomsday Clock as opposed to where you are now after halfway through.
Fucking basically my best rating on this is Justice League. I was over the moon. I was like, hell yeah, Doomsday Clock, Watchmen coming into the DC universe. This is a fucking awesome idea. I'm happy. Read the first issue. I was like, okay, it's a setup. I'll forgive it. And then the second issue followed the same thing. Oh, it's a setup. I'll forgive it. And then it's the whole, like you brought up, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice. And it literally has been 6 times. I'm just like, I'm not excited anymore.
Yeah.
I'm still going to read it. Like I said, I'm the type of person when I start a limited series, I finish it. But it peeves me, and the way I equate it to Metal, being that it was a 1-month release, so everybody had these same type of scenarios. They were like, I don't fucking remember what I read. It was a month ago. I just recently sat down and read them all, so I didn't have that gap, but it still wasn't worth the hype and reward. And that's how I feel about this. I feel like at the end of everything, I'm going to go, okay, there was so much time. I need to read this all in one. I'm going to read it all in one, and I'm going to question why I did it.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've all kind of given our thoughts on this, let's give our review or our rating. Dallas, you want to go first and reveal the rating system for Doomsday Clock number 6?
I'm going to give this one 1.5 marionettes. The only thing that ranks it up that 0.5 is the artwork.
Okay. Josh?
1.75 marionettes. It's the artwork and the comedian part to get me a little excited.
All right, I'm right with Josh. 1.75 marionettes. Gary Frank's art, it's great. I love it. There are a couple moments in here that I'm like, that's cool, but other than that, man, I wouldn't be paying for this if I wasn't a retailer. So, all right, guys, I think that is all we've got for you for Doomsday Clock issue 6. Definitely check out the channel because there are other episodes that we're doing for X-Men Grand Design and a couple others. So be on the lookout for those, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.